Okay, I guess I'm live. Hello, friends. This is gonna be super casual. So I'm here with Miss Cool Whip, who we'll see how long she sleeps on there if I keep knocking things over and waking her up. I got my bubble tea, so feel free to grab a beverage. Did you know you can just buy like the popping bubbles from bubble tea and you just make your own with seltzer at home? It's like amazing. Um, so, anywho, I have a bunch of questions that people asked for today, and I'm going to get through everything that I can. And then, if there's time at the end, you have extra questions, we can pop them in the chat. This is only my second live stream ever, so hopefully everyone can hear me and this works out. Um, and yeah, cool. Cool beans. All right. So I have a lot of new people who are subscribers slash followers things. So I just wanted to give like a little bit of background on myself. If you haven't been following for a while, I'm Laura DeMeo Roy. I've been training service dogs my entire career. I started really in college. I started helping with puppy raising, and then hi people. And then I started volunteering while I was in my grad program, and then I got hired as a apprentice for a guide dog school. And right after I finished, I was still finishing my master's at the time, which was chaos. And so I spent 3 years apprenticing and became a guide dog mobility instructor. I worked at Fidelco for 5 years. I left, started my own business while I was working there. I moved to Colorado, started a puppy program with Julie Parker, one of my favorite people, at Rocky Mountain Dog Training. If you're out in Colorado, right before the pandemic, we moved back to Connecticut, which is where we grew up, my husband and I, and now we live here, and I still get to travel. So traveling is a big part of my lifestyle. Training, obviously, it's the whole gig. So that's just a little bit about me. And I have Jake and Cool Whip are my two dogs. If you've seen them in my videos, Jake's my old man. He's like 13 and a half, and Cool Whip is like 6.5 now or so. She's an Australian Coolie. I get that question all the time. She's a purebred. She's not a mix. Jake's a mix. He's a rescue. I got him as an adult, as a 2-year-old or so. So that's just a little bit about me and my puppers. And let's just like jump right into it with jumping as a problem. So the question is, thank you for all the congratulations, everyone. I appreciate that. Oh, hello from Virginia. Yeah. And I travel all over. So that's something of interest is I travel everywhere. I meet up with clients if I'm in the area. So if I'm ever in a location and I have clients in that area, I sometimes will reach out and see who is available or wants to do a lesson, that kind of thing. Because I have the best clients. They're great. Okay. So I'm primarily a service dog trainer now. I don't do pet dog training anymore. But I do a lot of pet dog videos because there's not really a ton of difference between basic pet dog stuff and service dog stuff. And I started with pet dog stuff when I did my own business. So, all right, how do I stop my dog from jumping on people? Great question. Really common problem with lots and lots of people. This is really common. So the first thing I want to think about when I'm thinking through a problem is not what do I not want the dog to do, but instead, what do I want the dog to do? What is the thing that I want the dog to do in the presence of a person that isn't jumping? Because when I have a goal or an objective for the behavior that I want, I can more easily come up with a training plan. The absence of behavior is difficult to train, and dogs don't understand the absence of behavior as a concept as much. So when I'm thinking about not jumping, what I really want the dog to do is either keep all 4 feet on the floor, or I want them to sit, or I want them to touch someone's hand. I don't really care what it is, whatever the thing is that's incompatible with jumping. So when I think about it that way, I think, okay, how can I actually proof the behavior of, say, sitting in the presence of a person? That's what we want. So when we're talking about any type of problem that we're trying to solve with our dog, we want to think about management first. So it's always, how can I manage this situation first while I'm training for the behavior that I want? So I want to kind of make a list of all the places or the times that my dog is likely to jump. So my dog is likely to jump when someone they don't know comes through the door, or my dog is likely to jump when I greet a stranger. So those are 2 scenarios. Okay, what type of management can I employ now before I've trained the behavior so that my dog isn't just practicing the thing that I don't want them to practice. So at your house, that could look like a baby gate, and you put up a baby gate until the dog calms down. If you're not in the, you're not able to train at that moment, or if that is out in the world, it might be at the start that you are saying, like, your dog is on leash, and you might say, "Hey, I can't greet right now. We're working on something." And then you only engage with people that you know are, going to be able to respect your rules around your dog and petting. Now, I'm a person that doesn't allow a lot of petting on leash of my dogs because I don't want them thinking that everybody is a handout of pets. Um, but if you do allow your dog to greet on leash, we have to make sure that we can have a little bit of control over the environment. Good example, I was walking my dogs today down the road. And I watched a guy, he came up behind us, talked to my dogs, and then went and saw another dog and laid on the ground in front of the dog. Like, it was an Airedale that was barking and lunging at him, and he laid on the ground in front of the dog. That's something that's going to be difficult for any dog to to deal with. So the first thing I want to do is manage the situation, and I want to say, "Oh, sorry, we're training right now. Can't say hi." So that's my start, management. Now, what do I do proactively to train the behavior that I want, which is sitting when someone pets them? Well, the first thing I want to teach young puppies to do, and anybody, any dog, it doesn't have to be a young puppy, but I like to teach it young, is a hand touch. So I can model that behavior for the person and say, "Okay, yeah, it's fine. I would love for you to greet them, but they do best if you put your hand out for a hand touch." And then you teach the dog to boop the person's hand. And instead of jumping up to be at their face level, they're like, "Oh, I can just boop this person's hand." Um, and that gets me reinforcement. So that's one way to handle jumping. Another way to handle jumping would be to start with some general impulse control games. So, like Susan Garrett's It's Your Choice game. You can Google that afterwards. It's, a game where you're talking about control around food, but if your dog has not a ton of impulse control, that's a good place to start, is having any impulse control at all. So games about impulse control can be really helpful. And then just reinforcing an incompatible behavior. So if it's the dog is jumping on people in the house, okay, first I'm going to leash the dog and make sure that I don't have a dog that is free to jump all over people in the house, because I am the one that's opening the door. So I know that someone is going to come in the house. So I can just keep a leash right by the door, leash up my dog, say, "Oh, hold on one second, I'm training," and get my little snacks, put them near the door so they're easily available, and practice reinforcing sitting. And it may take a while. I mean, some dogs are super, super love to jump. The other question I would have too is the dog getting appropriate exercise and enrichment to be able to control themselves around new environments? So, is the dog having enough exercise to be able to be calm in these situations? So I want to look at the whole picture of the dog. But basically, I want to reinforce incompatible behaviors, and that can even look like putting treats on the ground. Like, the dog just puts 4 feet on the ground, great, your cookie goes on the ground. Keeps 4 feet on the ground, cookie goes on the ground. Keeps 4 feet on the ground, cookies go on the ground. There is no magic here. Like, anybody who, like, these trainers that you're seeing, like, magically fix a dog in 4 minutes, they're suppressing behavior. If you want to actually train the dog, it takes time and energy and just lots of repetition. So we don't want to think that there's like this magic tool that's going to make the dog stop jumping or have less feelings about people coming through the door. So it does take some reinforcement, and it does take some management on your part while you're fixing that problem. Um, okay, cool. So that was question one. When I do these things on my Patreon, just so you know, people, a couple of you are Patreon members, so I totally appreciate your support so much. I usually bring like 10 pages of notes and some video examples of things, but this is a lot more informal. So if you're looking for more in-depth stuff, definitely check out the Patreon. It's only $3 to join for the month, and I do usually at least one post every week, a live stream every month. And if you're in the inner circle or elite, I also do a special topics on something that I'm interested in, or something that, one of the Patreon members is interested in. Like this month we did puppy evaluations. So I went through a puppy evaluation that I had done, so I could show you what I was looking for in a dog and whether or not this dog would be a good fit for service dog work. So it is for pet and service dog people. And again, all of these concepts that you might use with service dogs, you can use with pet dogs as well. Okay, so I had a question. What did you go to college for? This is a good question. Not for dog training. So I actually went to college for business and entrepreneurship. So I have a business degree. And then one, I was graduating early. So when I was halfway through that program, I realized that I did not want to be in a large corporation. So I was like, ugh, what am I going to do? So I figured that the place and I was obsessed with animals. So I had worked at a conservation center. I'd worked with a lot of endangered species, and I thought that was super cool. And that's actually where I learned to clicker train, which was neat. So I ended up deciding I would go for my master's in public administration and work for a nonprofit because most animal organizations are nonprofit. So not dog training related at all. I have a background in entrepreneurship. Um, okay, so the other thing that while y'all are here, I got nominated. So in 2022, I was voted one of the top remote trainers in the country, and that contest is, or I don't know what you want to call it, contest is up again right now. So I'm gonna throw the link in the chat box. If you guys would, I would love for you to vote for me. It's under Laura. I'll write it down because it's not exactly my name correctly. Um, but it is Laura Roy Remote, and it's organized by first letter of first name. So Laura Roy Remote. If you have the time, it takes like 2 seconds to vote, and I would love that so that I can be one of the top trainers again in 2023. So thank you to all of you who voted last year for this. This was the first time Sniff Spot did that competition. So super psyched about that. And Sniff Spot's pretty cool to be able to have fenced areas for your dog to run in all over the country. All right, so let's move on to a service dog question. So this is one, it's so funny that we got this question for this because I actually have a video that I taped this week on it. So I'm going to have an extensive video coming out about both how the question, which is how do you know when your service dog puppy is ready for training in public, so non-dog friendly stores, and also where to train your new service dog that is pet friendly. So I have that video coming out probably in 2 weeks or so. So I did tape that, but let's talk about it a little bit. So this can be a difficult one. Let's see. Oh, shout out to everyone in a career that has nothing to do with their degree. Yeah, exactly. Oh, hi, Beck. So when we're talking about service dog puppies, we want to have extensively worked in pet friendly stores before we think about going to non-pet friendly venues. And the great thing is that you can accomplish pretty much almost every scenario that you want to train for with your service dog prospect in a pet friendly location that you could in a non-pet friendly location. And I am going to talk a lot about that in my upcoming video, but other things that I use as a barometer of whether or not I should be moving into non-pet friendly spaces. First, I use the AKC. So if you're from the US, the AKC has several tests that you can take with your dog. So the first is the CGC, the Canine Good Citizen. Then they also have a CGCA, which is the Community Canine, and the CGCU, which is the Urban Canine. So I use those as just like a more objective barometer of how the dog is doing in training. So I use the CGC as like okay, this dog should continue on to thinking about service dog work. If they can't pass the CGC, they're probably not ready to be considered a service dog prospect. And then I can use the CGCU and the CGCA as my dog is doing really well in, lots of different environments. They're ready to go into non-pet friendly stores. Now, you don't have to actually take these tests. You can look them up online, but it is a good way to assess objectively how you're doing, because when you're an owner trainer, it's hard to know where your dog is at in their training. So and I don't know about y'all, but I like to have milestones that I want to reach when I'm working with my dog. So when we have these more objective tests, we can use them even if we're not going to go get the official AKC title, and we can have a friend, administer this test for us and see where our dog is. So I like to use those. So CGCA and the CGCU as like, okay, my dog is ready for prime time. It's ready to start working in the mall or other places that aren't dog friendly. The other things that I want to think about when I'm moving to non-pet friendly stores would be the ability to heal for at least like 5 to 10 minutes of duration, maybe not straight through. They're doing other things as well. Oh, Rachel, thank you. I appreciate that. So you're doing, other things inside the store, but we want to have a decent heel for a good 5 to 10 minutes of duration and attention. And then I want to have a strong leave it. That's really important because when we're going into stores, nobody wants your dog sniffing all of the merchandise. while they go through the aisles. So having a nice automatic leave it and a verbal leave it cued would be good, as well as confidence. Like we want a dog who is confident in a lot of environments before we bring them to this other environment, which the expectations are more. Because here's the thing: when you're training your owner trained service dog, or really any service dog, as soon as you put that vest on and you start going to places that aren't pet friendly, you get nervy. I mean, I get nervy. Like, because like, oh, you have this like feeling of pressure that your dog has to behave more perfectly. And we know that they're dogs and they make mistakes, and that's all normal. However, that kind of pressure for a lot of people is unavoidable. So when we like focus on non-pet friendly or on pet friendly stores to start, we basically are giving ourselves a chance to just breathe. And if the dog doesn't do how we hoped that they would do, no harm, no foul. You're just a person with a pet going out to Home Depot for the weekend, to grab your stuff. So I highly recommend keeping them unvested or in just like a simple do not pet vest when they're younger, to take the pressure off yourself and your dog. Because as soon as you get tight, your dog gets tight and they start being like, ooh, my human is acting a little funny here. Should I be nervous as well? And we don't want that. We want confidence, and we want to be really confident in these in these pet friendly places before we go to our non-pet friendly places. Okay, my 1-year-old great at Home Depot, but PetSmart is a disaster. Yeah, wait until you see my next video, because spoiler alert, PetSmart should be the last place that you go with your service dog. It's the hardest place you can possibly go. We should not be starting there. That is a like down the line at the end of training place to go. Okay, in 3 weeks, I'm getting a first border collie. Any tips, especially on socialization? I do have 2 videos actually on socialization. So if you check my video queue, I think one is called First Week with a Puppy, with Service Dog Puppy, and then Bringing Home a Puppy. So 2 videos on that'll be more helpful than on here with actual visual suggestions. Oh, I wish you could get rid of being the pet brushed by a stranger part of the CGC. Yeah, I wish that too. Also, a 3-minute out of sight, with the handler part of the CGC. When is that going to happen in real life? I will tell you, the thing that I had to practice the most for the CGC, what with Cool Whip, was the brushing part of it. Because she doesn't want strangers brushing her, because that's a weird thing to do. But it's part of the test, and you definitely can train against it, and you can make your dog more comfortable with it. Okay. Someone put a question on social media of what mistakes service dogs have made. Oh my God, so many. They're dogs, right? Like they're highly trained dogs, but ultimately they are dogs. So I'm trying to think of mistakes that Whip has made. I can't think of one right off the top of my head, but when I've trained other dogs, I've had a dog poop in the store. That's not ideal, but luckily we were in a pet friendly store, so it's less of a thing. But always have stuff on you to clean up if you need to. But yeah, having a dog go to the bathroom in the store, that's happened to me before. A dog taking something off a shelf, that's happened. Yeah, when you gotta go, you gotta go. Yeah. Now remember that if your dog does go to the bathroom in the store, you can get kicked out of the store. So that is, it's a thing that can happen to you, and also that would be grounds for getting dismissed from the dog getting dismissed from a store. Yep. Cool. Okay, so I have another question here. Okay, so this one isn't service dog. This is an interesting one. So this person got a new television, and now one of the dogs barks when they see the dog on TV. They specifically said that this new television has really good picture, so the dog is now seeing dogs as part of it. So they're seeing it really up close, whatever. So again, we want to think about management here first while we're working on training. So anything that we want the dog to stop doing while we're working on the behavior we do want them to do, which is lay quietly while you're watching television, we want to manage that first. We don't want them repeating this behavior that we don't like, because then it becomes a pattern and a habit. So the first thing is management. So while we're working on training, I would not have the dog in view of the television, and if hearing the dogs is a problem, because some dogs that's a problem too, they should be out of the room while you're watching TV in that room if you're not in the mode that you're going to be working on it and actively training it. So then I would play the engage disengage game. That's a game that is similar to the Look at That game. It's slightly different. But basically, we're starting for clicking for looking at the dog, reinforcing, clicking for looking at the dog, reinforcing. Eventually, what happens is basically the trigger of the dog appearing will cause the dog to start looking at you for a reinforcer, which will is incompatible with barking. Well, it's not incompatible with barking, but it does. Excuse me, stop the barking, because they're like, oh, a dog on TV is a good thing. I look at my human, I get snacks. So that's kind of the game that I would use to start that one out, to just get the dog in working mode. Like they're, oh, we're doing something around this dog thing. So I'd put that a dog movie on. I would be as far away from the television as possible. And then once they're doing well far away, and like I said, it could be sound related. So you might have to start like halfway out of the room kind of thing. And then once they're doing well with that, they're looking at you when a dog comes on TV. Then you're going to move to just having them choose something in the room while like you play, I don't know, a dog movie. I can't think of a dog movie off the top of my head. Seriously though, like you can just buy bubbles and make bubble tea at home. So that's how I would handle that, is engage, disengage game, which you can Google. There's like a free doc on it, like a free PDF thing on it online. Again, similar to the Look at That game. But that's a really good one for things, triggers, any type of triggers, really. And yeah, a dog on TV can definitely be a trigger for some dogs. And then once they're doing well with that, have them chew a bone quietly in the room so they get in the habit of being calm and quiet on a bed, like on a dog bed, not your human bed, because that'll be kind of gross. If you can manage that, so they have a spot that they're supposed to be while you're watching TV in the bedroom. Or great, either one. All right, so that's that one. All right, so I saw another question, I think. Yeah, dogs are dogs. Sometimes they have an accident. Any tips on how to get a border collie to fight their herding drive? Yeah, get a Labrador. Um, no, okay. So I do want to talk like a little bit about like dogs. Like we cannot expect herding dogs not to want to herd. That is part of the thing. So what I think is important is practicing those impulse control things, but also giving them an outlet for what they want to do. So when I first got Jake, my cattle dog mix thing, he was really bad around horses. And I had a horse at the time. And he wanted to go heal the horse, which, you know, that's bred in there. That's part of it. It's not all in how you raise them, it's genetics. So what I did is I actually went out and started working him on cattle. And once I started working him on cattle and he had a way to express these natural genetic tendencies, I now was able to get significant control around the horse to the point that he could be loose on the farm while I was there. So I think having an appropriate outlet and then also taking turns and then also management. So like Jake is, you know, a cattle dog. He's 13 and a half, and I still manage them in the doorways. So between Cool Whip and Jake is a much more intense personality. If I let him out the doorway first, he is going to try to herd Whip when she comes out. That's inappropriate for both of them. So I always have them sit at the door. I let Whip out first. I let him out, and then he gets to chase her around and they have fun instead of him scaring her and having him jump back and forth and pretending she's a cow. So some of it is management as well. Okay, so we play the disengage game on walks with people and dogs. It's made a huge difference with jury. Yeah, so engage disengage is part of the way that I train for neutrality. So my dogs can walk by most things neutrally, especially on bike paths or when bikes come by. Whip was a car and bike chaser when I got her out of fear. And so we spent a lot of time with the engage disengage game. And now we can walk by on a 10-foot leash, walk by people, walk by bike that's flying by, walk by skateboards, all of that. Just a ton of reinforcing for this thing appears, bike, human, whatever, appears. You look at me, reinforcement, great, let's walk by. And now she doesn't need to be reinforced every time. But I do reinforce it quite a bit because that's behavior I like. And in the real world, you don't actually have to get off treats. You do for your CGC and stuff. So you need to know how to do it. But like, I'm still going to reinforce very valuable behavior to me, like recalls and walking by bikes and not trying to chase them. So Oh man, lots of questions. Okay. So I've been training my 4-month-old standard golden doodle, and then lo and behold, life happens, and I'm now on crutches. Any suggestions on how to continue obedience training while on crutches? Yes. A lot of things can be taught in a wheelie chair. So I'm in my wheelie chair here. I know you can't see my chair. Anyways, normal wheelie desk chair. So I would spend a lot of time shaping behavior. So I'm a big proponent of shaping a lot of behavior, and most things can be taught with some targets and shaping of behavior. Yes, you're not going to be able to work as much on loose leash walking, but you still can. I would work on it off leash in your house to start with and start building a reinforcement zone. But yeah, most other things. And also, if you have a platform or an ottoman or a table that you can raise your dog up on so that you can deliver reinforcement in a timely fashion and that's easy for you when you are on crutches, that's helpful. Okay. My husband found me, haven't met or seen Laura with her dogs while you're training as well. You're also missing out. That's very nice. Thanks, Beck. Mm. But yeah, 4-month-old, you might also need to get a dog walker or someone who can help with exercise because 4-month-old dog is probably going to be pretty annoying pretty quickly. So lots of training and enrichment activities. Okay. My husband found me sitting in the car in the garage with our puppy today, and he was like, "What the heck are you doing? We're getting used to the car." Yes. Yes, I love it. Yeah. Yep, getting used to the car. I actually have an entire video on preparing your puppy to ride in a crate in the car because that was a thing that happened with me when I had Jake and I was getting cool. Jake has some car issues. He's had them since we rescued him. He came up here in one of those big semis, and he was pretty terrified of everything. He'd lived outside for the first 2 years of his life. And one of the things was the car. And so we did really well with getting him more comfortable with it, but it's still not his favorite thing. So I knew that I didn't want Whip to pick up all of that like anxious energy in the car. So I actually spent 6 months, the first 6 months that I had Whip, they were never in the car together. We would literally take separate cars if my husband and I were both going and both the dogs were going, so that she never had the experience of being with this dog who she looked up to and did a lot with, of being anxious. And now she's a amazing traveler and absolutely perfect in the car. So yeah, doing things like getting used to the car, really, really important. Pattern games, yep. Leslie McDivitt's pattern games are great. I mean, there's other pattern games too, but Leslie McDivitt uses them quite a bit with her stuff. Wheelie chair, super. Okay, so I had another question. Oh, it was about a progression of alerts. So this person was wanting their dog to, if they got anxious, to progress alerts. And if they don't react when she's disassociating, first to a nose touch and then a paw, and then worst case, jumping on me. Does this make sense, or is this or is there a better behavior that you can teach them? I'm going to tell you right now that I've never trained a progression like that. What I generally do is teach persistence. So basically, I want the dog to persist until something happens. Either I mark and reinforce it, or I go do a thing. So that means I'm basically building duration. So say that it's a boop. Say like so a boop. For people that don't know, pretend this is a leg, and it has some tape on it. So I basically teach the dog to boop my leg at some type of cue that my body is doing. So say I don't know, doesn't really matter. You're having a panic attack. Dog boops boops the leg, and if you don't respond, the boops get more intense until it becomes so annoying that you acknowledge the dog, and that's when the dog stops. So that's basically proofing against everything else. And that's how you do that. So you start with one. Actually, I start doing it if you're on my Patreon in the series I'm doing right now with my medical reminder and retrieve. I start teaching a paw there, and then I start teaching a double paw and persistence in pawing. But it does take some time to build up that kind of duration with the dog and persistence, and you have to have a dog that's not super sensitive, because if you as a person are just like trying to get the dog away from you when they're doing the thing, you have to actually proof the dog against those things. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time to get that kind of stuff. I also had a question on how do you handle a service pup's first large crowd experience. Yeah, so I like this question because it brings up a really important point about how I train and how I think it's beneficial for your dog to train, and that is by slicing things down into little tiny, tiny pieces. So when you're saying your first large crowd experience, for me, for how I would train a dog, there would be very little difference between the medium, like the last crowd I experienced, and the next crowd that I'm going to. So let me give you a better example of that. So I'm slicing things down thin. So I might say, okay, I'm going to start my dog in a small gathering, right? And then the next time I'm working on crowd stuff, I'm going to start them with a little bit larger gathering and then a little bit larger and a little bit larger. There are no huge jumps. So there's no like, I was doing fine in a Best Buy. Does anyone go to a Best Buy anymore? I was doing fine at Best Buy and now I'm at a concert. That doesn't happen. That's not a thing that I do. So if I know I need to prepare for something with a large crowd, I'm spending 6 months working up to that thing. Um, so I might be going, say, I'm bringing the dog. I don't know. I don't really bring dogs to concerts that often, just because they're usually bad environments for a young dog to learn in. But say I'm going to go to an outdoor concert. Okay, well, I'm going to start 6 months earlier at the outskirts of a park while there's like a small outdoor concert going on and slowly build from there. But if you're talking about a crowd and maybe you want to have a plan in place, so the first thing I do, like I said, start with a smaller crowd. We also want to have an exit plan. Like when you have these things that you are trying to train your dog to, you need to remember that your dog is your first priority and there needs to be an exit strategy if the dog is getting overwhelmed. So I want to know that I'm okay with going to a place first where I'm fine with throwing away whatever money I spent to be there. So preferably something cheap. Where if 5 minutes in, my dog is just overwhelmed and I have misjudged what my dog was prepared for, then I would just leave. I mean, I would leave and come back with a better plan on a different day. The other thing I want to think about is when I'm setting my dog up, once I have an exit strategy, and the exit strategy may be that I'm going to put the dog in the car. If it's not bad, weather out and the dog is overwhelmed, I can always put my dog in a crate and say, okay, this wasn't the right thing. This isn't the right day, whatever. Other things I plan on if I want to go to a big crowd event. Um, she's having a dream. It's really adorable. Okay, so I want to get out of the car, play some pattern games, do some known behaviors. It doesn't have to be pattern games. It can be whatever it is that you do as a protocol for your dog when you get out of the car. So I like to, oh, hey, sweetie. I like to do like the up down game, Leslie McDivitt's up down game, or I like to do some hand touches, but something where I'm engaging with the dog so that I can judge how they're feeling about a certain situation is important to me. So, like, if they need a little bit of time to settle in, I can give them that time. And then if I'm going to a large crowd place, what are you doing? Hi, you want to say hi? I don't even know if they can see you because I have my thing up. No, they can't. She got a little coat on because this dog gets cold too easily. She doesn't know I'm always talking to this weird box. You're very cute though. Okay. So pattern games or some type of ritual that you do when you get out of the car that helps you with judging whether or not your dog is ready for the situation. Then we want to go early so that we can settle in. So I don't want to be walking in at prime time of having a crowd and like just my dog just having to deal with that. That's called flooding. We don't want to do that. So I want to get there early, plenty of time. Maybe I'm going to sit down and let the crowd fill in around me. That might be a good idea depending on what you're going to. I want to bring lots of high value reinforcers. I'm talking the good stuff. I'm talking, whatever your dog loves. So if it's steak or bologna or I don't know, whipped cream from a can, I don't care. Whatever your dog loves. And then the other suggestion I have if you're going to a crowded place, I don't know about y'all, but I'm not a big fan of crowded places. So I want to bring a friend if possible, or a family member, or a trainer. So somebody that's going to be there to support me and potentially like be an extra set of hands if I need them, or if I start to have a problem, to be able to talk to the stranger that's talking to me in my personal space, that kind of stuff. But even just someone to be able to hold a drink for me while I adjust something on my dog's harness. All of those are great things to be able to support, you as the handler. So that's how I would handle first crowd experiences. But again, I would be building up slowly. We're slicing everything into little pieces so that my dog can be successful. The reason that you don't see a ton of errors, and you know, I mean, those of you on my Patreon know that I show you when I make mistakes. But the reason you don't see like reactivity or like huge errors and stuff is because I am not trying to set my dog up to fail. I am trying to set them up to succeed because nobody feels good when they're bad at stuff all the time. We want our dogs to be like, yeah, I handled this well. We want to give them little small challenges that they can be successful at. And then they're like, yeah, I build my confidence. Okay, now I can tackle the next thing. Okay, now I'm going to tackle the next thing. I'm trying not to ever outface the dog and what they're ready for. Does that make sense? Get some more bubble tea. All right, let me read the comments. Local training club promotes jerk and praise based balance training. This is Idaho. Trying to figure out how to change the culture. Am enrolled there to earn a CGC. Yeah, sometimes you just have to do stuff. So like I go to a place to do rally with Whip, and I'm not there for the instruction. I mean, the instructor is totally fine, but it's a lot of variation in how people train, and I just show up and show off. Like, I mean, that's the way that I like to do things is like, yeah, I'm going to be silly and I'm going to praise my dog and I am going to feed the heck out of her for good stuff. And I don't care if I look silly because we're doing well. My dog is doing well. She's happy to be there. I'm happy to be there. I'm not interested in not having fun. Like, I am interested in having fun with my dog and like going and showing up and you know, I'm not afraid to make a show of praise and feeding my dog because there are lots of different ways to train out there. And I'm not really concerned with how other people are training around me. I'm concerned with the experience that my dog is having. Okay, so going training at Lowe's with our pups, but putting live on pause and coming back. This is so valuable, even as someone with service dog experience. Thank you. Whip is a cutie in her coat. Thank you. I know. The reason you see her in these coats all the time is I actually have 2 coats for her that are this funky color in different weights, you know, depending on what the weather is, because my dog has better clothing than I do. Oh, speaking of clothing, I do have new merch coming out. So this is like, and I should thank Josh. So a friend of mine from when I was a kid redid my entire website for me. He has an amazing business. His business is at the bottom of my new website. This is the website. Ooh, not 3Gs. Yeah, so this is the website. He redid the whole thing for me. I so appreciate it. You know, it wasn't expected that I would be doing this full time now, so that it was really good timing for that to happen. And he just did a really nice job with the rebrand. So I do have lots of, I have merch up already, and then I have new merch coming out. I have some really fun stuff that I think y'all are gonna like coming out in the next probably month or so. So that's the spread shop there, and there's all different sizes. They have pretty inclusive sizes too. So if you want some of that stuff, check it out. I love how much you encourage your dog, and I'm thankful that I've had the opportunity to learn from you on encouraging dogs. Thank you, Beck. Appreciate it. Whip's paw alert. Can you explain why you chose a repeated paw touch versus a sustained paw touch? Same for nose boop. Yeah. So I'm big on working to dog strengths. And because Whip had some jaw issues when she was younger, I don't do too many booping behaviors with her because we constantly are doing like just maintaining the whatever her jaw soreness stuff from when she was younger. So I don't do a ton of stuff. I know you wouldn't think it because the amount of time she wants to freaking play tug with me is a lot. but I don't do a lot of booping because she doesn't like it. Now with Jake, Jake was never a service dog, but he had a lot of service dog skills. Like I said, he was bad in the car, so that would disqualify him from service dog work. But I taught him a nose boop because he liked it and it was strong. As far as the pawing for the medical reminder behavior, I chose that because I knew that it would mostly be inside. If the reminder was going to be where she was going to have dirty paws and I was going to have like pants on, I wouldn't have chosen that. So, and as far as the sustained paw touch, let's see, a repeated paw touch versus a sustained, I think repeated paw touches are more annoying. So I would be more likely to respond to it. Um, yeah, and on that note, if you've been following along with my medical alert behavior stuff over on Patreon, I've only, and I'll do an update over on Patreon about this, but I've literally just been practicing this once a day with her, and just she's doing really, really nicely with it. And my incidence of not taking my medication has gone down from like 2 or 3 times a week I was forgetting to take it to 2 or so times a month. So huge, huge improvement. Very helpful task for me. So she's been doing well with that, and I'll be doing an update on that soon once I've got I release the next 3 videos in that series. Does that answer your question? I think so. But yeah, I play to the dog's strengths. I'm going to do the things that the dog likes to do naturally too. So, unless they don't care either way, and then I'll pick whichever is most convenient for me. But for me, repeated nose boops would probably be the most annoying thing, the thing that I would want to use. Love it. Show up and show off. Glad you approved doing our own thing quietly in the corner, using the rest of the class as distractions. Yeah, not everybody lives in a place where you can have the pick of where you want to train. I have plenty of clients that live out where there's not a lot of options, so you have to take the options you have and then make them work for you. But it is important that you advocate for your dog, and you don't do things that you don't approve of or that you don't think are right for your dog just because there's someone of authority, another trainer slash human being there, that's telling you to do them. It is always okay to say, I'm not comfortable with that, and I am not going to do that with my dog. And if your trainer isn't okay with that, and they're not willing to at least talk to you about why they're doing something in a certain way, then you leave. Yeah. So that's my thoughts on that. But yeah, you got to use what you can use. Okay. In a situation where your dog gets spooked and jumps or runs away, how would you react to that? Would you comfort them? Yeah. So you can't comfort, like, you're not going to build emotional reaction into something. You're not going to like promote fear for comforting your dog or anything like that. So a little of it depends on what the thing is. So like if I had a dog who was spooking at something, usually I'm gonna pick up I call it the touch the butt game. There's probably a better name for that, but on Patreon I use that a lot. But if anyone has ever seen Finding Nemo, this is going to be very tangential, but basically in Finding Nemo, there's this scene where there's a boat and it's on the surface, and each fish goes up to go touch the boat further and further away, but they call it touch the butt. Anyway, that's the game that I play with the dog. It's very tangential. It makes no sense. But basically, if my dog is getting spooked by something and it's a mild spook and it's appropriate for me to break out a game that they know and start turning that thing that is spooky into something that is not spooky, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to back away to the point that the dog is comfortable. And then I'm going to click for looking at the thing, reinforce away from the thing so that they can back away from it. When they go investigate some more, click, reward away, click, reward away. So basically I'm taking the pressure off. They can choose to go back towards the thing, and I'm going to turn it into potentially a learning experience. If it's just like oh no, bad thing happened, we need to get out of there, fine, we get out of there. And then whenever I'm at the point that the dog can come down from that experience, I'm going to do some type of hopefully game decompression, like a nice long sniffy walk, to help them with that. But there's very few times that I've been in a situation where a dog has spooked so badly that it wasn't recoverable with some type of like engagement and game. Because again, we want to, like, stuff happens, right? But in general, we don't want to be setting them up to have that type of thing happen. But like, okay, here's a good example. Get attacked by an off-leash dog, right? That's a thing that happens to everybody because sometimes people suck. So in that situation, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get my dog out of there, to get the other dog away. And then usually I am dumping food on the ground for them to pick up, to sniff, to calm themselves down, and for me to take a chance to calm myself down too. Because I don't know about y'all, but I'm pretty calm in dogfight situations, but even so, your heart rate's going, your dog can feel all that stuff. So I need to give myself some time to breathe and calm down from that. Okay. So I think that was all the questions that I had. And it's late and I don't do things at 7:00 at night ever. So, yeah, I hope this was coherent because usually I am thinking about getting ready for bed at this point. And if you want to, see more of these or do some more of these like on a topic, definitely check out my Patreon. I'll drop it down on here for those of you that are watching not live as well. Yeah, it's $3 a month to join. It's a lot of awesome people. We're almost up to, I think, 150 members or something like that. So yeah, I have a lot of fun over there. And thank you all who are already Patreon members and are on this live stream. It's super fun to get to hang out. And I think that's it. Thank you all for being here. I so appreciate it. This has been really fun. I'll try to do more of them. You're welcome, Melissa. All right. Have an awesome night, everyone. Happy training.